Hi, I'm here today with Danielle Bekker. Danielle was the Global Brewing Innovation Director for SABMiller. She's also been the Global Product and Process Director for InBev, FTSE 100 businesses. She's also been the founder of her own successful drinks business that won awards and she went on to sell. And more recently, Danielle has been a board advisor, non-exec director for food and drink and charities in the UK. Danielle does a lot of work with SMEs, helping them on their innovation strategy. We're here today to talk about innovation, where it sits and how it can be improved. Danielle, thanks very much for your time. It's good to see you today.
Yeah, looking forward to for the chat.
Yeah. So let's make a start then. How does the UK compare to all the other countries in the globe that you've been involved with?
It's interesting. I would say from my personal experience, I would say that the approach to maybe innovation and adopting new ideas in the UK was not as, good as I had seen in other countries. But if you look at it on the data perspective, the UK performs really well on number of breakthrough innovations that it achieves compared to our sort of European colleagues. And if you look at our risk appetite, it seems to be closer to the US than it is to Europe. So if I have to reflect to myself, I don't think it's around how we do breakthrough innovation necessarily, but it's how we do those littler innovations better, quicker, things like that. And I see a little bit more of that sort of not invented here syndrome in the UK. I think some of the countries I had the pleasure of working with, it was marked how if they saw a good idea, be in another company or another part of the business, they would just adopt it, trial it, and put it in that sort of steal with pride mentality. Whereas sometimes in the UK, there was far more of this intellectual arguments as to why something wouldn't work and why it wasn't appropriate and all this kind of thing. So I think sometimes good ideas take longer to get in place than they should because of that delay, really.
Okay.
I think the other thing to add on to that, Dan, is that the UK at the moment is not in a good space, really. I think, high inflation, consumers aren't so keen to spend. So you've got this backdrop as well of people tightening their belts, both in the FMCG sector and consumers. And so what does that mean for innovation and how do we respond to those challenges?
Okay. They're tightening the belt in that area.
Yep. And I think that impacts on how you think about innovation. Maybe that's something we should think about as well. What do we mean by innovation? Because we all think about innovation quite differently. So innovation can be, the next best thing since sliced bread, some new technology, some, new to world food or something. Equally, it can be as simple as doing a process better or tweaking something. So, there's horizons of innovation which add complexity and risk along the way, but not all innovation has to be product focused or consumer focused. It could be innovating on doing a process better or anything like that. So it also depends on how we think about what innovation is.
I know in my earlier career, I was involved with a company and one of the values was innovation. And I really couldn't get my head around what it meant at the time.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And, when you go into a business, what are the things that you do to get a handle on where are they on the innovation front? What sort of things do you do?
It's a good question because I think I've also maybe learned this the hard way along the way. But often if you're brought into an organization to do work on help us define our innovation strategy or our 5-year plan or anything like that, first what you probably need to do and understand is what you've been briefed, is that actually what the organization wants, or has the organizational model and culture to execute. I did some work for an organization where I was brought in because they wanted to really have a much better Horizon 3 innovation pipeline. So really the longer term, kind of more breakthrough stuff. But the more we worked through it, more discussed it with the CEO, that actually wasn't in the DNA of the company. They didn't have the risk appetite to spend in that space. What they were really, really good at was taking competitive products and just making them cheaper and better quality. And that actually was what the innovation strategy was about. So then we reframed it, was how do you do that process better and embed that into the DNA of the organization. It was massively successful, but not what they originally thought that they wanted. And I think one way you can really assess, how risk averse people really are is to have a look at their innovation funnels. In an innovation funnel, you have loads of ideas, and then one or two things should ultimately come out the other end, be that a new process or a new product. And then companies that are quite risk averse, typically what goes into the funnel comes out the funnel. So there's already been a decision made that it's going to get launched. Whereas people who genuinely have more of an appetite for risk or that fail fast, stuff will come out of that funnel. It will get pivoted, it will get reframed, or it will just get dropped completely in much more of a dynamic way. So having a look at really how that funnel is and how things are coming out gives you a good sense of, their real approach to innovation and their appetite for risk. I also like to have a look at sort of other parts of the business, like how good are they at problem solving. I always think this is a good indication of how you might think about innovation, because if people are really good at solving problems, capturing those learnings and adapting, that's the kind of DNA and culture that you need to support innovation. And then how do you, especially if we're talking about FMCG and manufacturing, how do you engage with the shop floor with ideas? Because it's not just a suggestion box. I think the worst thing you can do is say, right, we're going to innovate, we're going to involve the whole company, and then the solution is to put in a suggestion box, because that's probably a recipe for not success. And there's just so many better ways to do that and embed it as a rhythm and a way of doing things for continuous improvement in the shop floor. And then I suppose lastly, how do they think about innovation? Do they define it as the solution that they're trying to solve? So if we wanted to say launch a low calorie chocolate, have they described the problem as that I want a tasty low calorie chocolate? Or have they framed it as a problem or an opportunity to say, I would like a guilt-free afternoon treat that I can enjoy guilt-free? If you frame it like that, you're much more likely to get a much broader set of ideas and hopefully a richer outcome than defining it into the solution that you already think it should be. So those are the sorts of things I might have a look at if I was going into an organization.
And when when you've seen those things, and what are the things you do to actually get there? Then what sort of things do you implement, or how do you get them to that objective?
I think firstly, knowing who in the organization to kind of work with. I think particularly people like long-standing employees, they can either be your biggest asset or your biggest liability. They're either the people who go, oh, it'll never work, we've tried it before, and they're very adverse to change, or they can be the biggest advocates of, yes, we have all these ideas, we have all these thoughts, we know we can do things better, and sort of channeling that. So I think being quite targeted as to who you work with as really those, I suppose, early adopters. Yeah. But also around getting cross-functional working in place. I think the biggest downfall for effective innovation is when departments don't work well together. So if consumer insights passes the solution over to the marketing team, who then does a bit of work and then says to the technical or NPD team, give me this, you've probably got not a very good solution along the way, rather than people working together to say, what are the ideas we want to go after. And another thing I think you see often in organizations, and again, it links back to their risk appetite, is how bold are they with their ambitions? Because often, and this I think is sometimes, you see this in the UK as well, is, rather than saying, right, we're going to save $100 million. Don't know how we're going to do it, but that's the target. And then everyone works to try and deliver to this really ambitious target, rather than, first knowing, this, or launching a new brand that's worth, $100 million, whatever the case may be. The bolder the targets are, the more likely you are to get a better solution than setting more conservative targets and getting a kind of average outcome.
Okay.
And then recruitment, I guess, is important. Depending on how an organization has evolved, the profile of person who's going to be good at innovation is not going to be the same as the person who's going to be really good necessarily at running a factory or a supply chain or something like that. So thinking very carefully about having the right skill sets, competencies in your staff with the appropriate level of diversity of thinking and approach is going to set you far better for success than not.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We use Thomas International, and we do a lot of that with behaviours. What behaviours, what qualities are you looking for? Okay. Listen, that's been really helpful. Thank you. Very insightful. To our network out there, if you'd like to hear any more, get in touch and we can line a meeting up with Danielle. Thank you, Danielle.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Bye-bye.